Ready, set, go. All right, this is the shark nervous system. We're going to start more anteriorly and work our way posteriorly. Okay, this is the olfactory sac, this dark, enlarged portion here. This lighter, enlarged, kind of bulbous structure is the olfactory bulb, and you can see the olfactory tract here running back from that. Okay, the olfactory tract includes the olfactory nerve. Above that is the superficial ophthalmic trunk, which contains cranial nerves 5 and 7. So that's anterior to the orbit here. Within the orbit, the same nerve that combines cranial nerves 5 and 7 is known as the infraorbital trunk. So it's infraorbital trunk here, and what was it? Superficial ophthalmic? Right, superficial ophthalmic trunk here. Okay, now we'll start on the main parts of the brain. So olfactory tract runs back here to these two structures here, which are your two cerebral hemispheres. And keep in mind that these cerebral hemispheres are much, much larger in the mammalian brains, like these guys here. So we've got two really large cerebral hemispheres and the cerebellum back here. Okay, whereas in the shark, you have your cerebral hemispheres here and your cerebellum here, which is larger in relation. Okay, so from our cerebral hemispheres here, just behind that, this section is the epithalamus. Then we have two optic lobes. Then we have our cerebellum. So our cerebellum has three main parts: the anterior lobes here, the posterior lobes here, and then on either side, these kind of ear-shaped structures called auricles. Okay, posterior to the cerebellum, we have an even older part of the brain called the medulla oblongata. You can see it's kind of Y-shaped here and more expanded than the spinal cord back here. So this is the medulla oblongata, and this kind of groove here between the two Y-type structures is called the fourth ventricle of the medulla oblongata, whereas this whole structure is the medulla oblongata. Okay, and then here, once it's no longer expanded and running down the spine, this is the spinal cord. Okay, so we're going to skip back up to here and go over some of the nerves. Okay, so we had our superficial ophthalmic trunk here, remember, and our infraorbital trunk here within the orbit. Both of those contain cranial nerves 5 and 7. The olfactory nerve here within the olfactory tract. And then if you're looking actually in the eye itself, you can see the trochlear nerve is this little guy here. It innervates a couple of the muscles of the eye. It's smaller and runs perpendicular to the infraorbital trunk here. Now you can see the eyeball has actually been removed from this side, but on this side you can see the infraorbital trunk here with the eyeball here intact, and the is it the deep ophthalmic nerve? The deep ophthalmic nerve is a little bit smaller than the infraorbital trunk here, and the deep ophthalmic runs actually on the surface of the back of the eye, whereas the infraorbital trunk is thicker and a little bit more medial and not directly attached to the eye. Okay, some other important nerves, so we go back to this cerebellum area here and the two ear-shaped auricles on either side. If you pull one of those auricles a little bit over to the side, you can see that there's a large nerve right here that's going laterally. That's the common trunk of the trigeminal, so that's going to split into 3 different cranial nerves, but you just need to know that it's the common trunk of the trigeminal. Okay? And then the last 2 nerves that you need to know branch off of the medulla oblongata here, which remember is this section between the cerebellum and the spinal cord. So if you pull the medulla oblongata over here to the side, you can see this large nerve here is the vagus nerve, and just anterior to that actually, to move this over. Now sometimes these are a little bit more split up, but this glossopharyngeal nerve is thinner and branches off higher up on the medulla oblongata, and then the vagus nerve, V-A-G-U-S, branches off lower down, and I kind of accidentally pushed it off of the medulla oblongata, but it branches off lower down here and is a little thicker than the glossopharyngeal up here. So I've got the glossopharyngeal and then the vagus nerve branching off lower down on the medulla oblongata. Those are only nerves we're going to know. We're not going to learn the various branches of the vagus nerve further down here. Okay, the last section we're going to include on the exam is the structures of the inner ear, the semicircular canals, and the sacculus. So, oops, why is it so sticky? There we go. Okay, so this is the position of the sacculus. It's kind of this jelly-filled cavity on either side of the medulla oblongata here. And surrounding it on either side, the left and right side, are 3 semicircular canals. So this one we've actually pulled out of the groove that it sits in. Because this is the shark's left, this would be the left anterior semicircular canal. This is the left posterior semicircular canal that would sit in this groove here. And then kind of completing the almost circular, triangular surrounding of the sacculus would be the lateral left lateral semicircular canal, which we can't really see, but the position would be here. Okay, so left anterior semicircular canal, left posterior semicircular canal here, this guy, which would sit in this groove, and then left lateral semicircular canal. Now each semicircular canal ends in an expanded structure that you can see here since I pulled it out of its groove, and that is called the ampulla of the semicircular canal. So this is the ampulla of the left posterior semicircular canal. Okay, I forgot there's one last thing, and that is the structures associated with the ampullae of Lorenzini. So if you look at the skin of a shark, you'll notice if you look closely that it's covered in tiny little pores, and you can kind of see that here, all these little dots, and especially concentrated in the rostral area are sensory structures called ampullae of Lorenzini, and you can kind of see the position of those here in the skin where these canals terminate. So these are the canals leading to the ampullae of Lorenzini, and then the ampullae are actually the expanded